we can prove, okay, that we're now a representation of a 2D space as a 3D universe, and we have a 10, we can do maths in 10 dimensions to 11 dimensions, right? Because 3, 6, 9, we still have to think, well, if we're a 3D dimension, we got to think that we can't multiply positive in ourselves. Then if that's the case, then there has to be a one-dimensional plane, right? Or a two-dimensional plane that exists, right? Because they're leftover numbers, right? So like that's when science gets fucked with your head, right? Like that's when we talk about, you know, the idea on that. It's not that we're a fucking hologram, right? We're not a simulation, in my opinion. But you know, how is this not in certain ways the same thing as having a PC, right, to a monitor, right, and in which that fucking plays to me Minecraft, right? And then in that Minecraft, I can do X, Y, and Z, right? So, like, that kind of over-exaggerates some formality, right, of logic. But, you know, if dimensional space doesn't exist, but we can traverse through some level of entanglement that might be a way of traversable energy, right? And that works as, you know, the fiber network, or a network in which that mass regulates a level of highways that are evolved with evolutions of curvature of space, or retracting or retracting or expanding a space, and in which that data is extracted because there are points of space in which a curvature points and angles through energy meet. And in which that then, if 1D dimensional space exists, right, and that with that energy is traversable into that to create an equal 2D space, and in which that plus 2, into which that us as 3-dimensional space can't exist in a flat space, and in which that flat space is a 1D space or a 2D space, because we're only up and down here, but here we're only left and right. And like in that, you know, could we create a 3-dimensional space that can exist within 2D space in a section of it, right, is a question. Right now, the fact is that if this energy is traversable, right, how do we drain that point? Because we're never able to see in its entirety that, even by basic measurements in math, that we're able to take levels of space and measure it in a 90-degree angle, because we're able to block it off, and we can measure everything that is traversing from this black hole. The fact of the matter is that, does this even exist, right? You know, and within those principles of it, it shows the thermodynamics to be correct.